Hi and welcome everybody. This is one of the first Masala Crowd interviews and I have a great director here today with me and I'm really excited to talk to him because I really enjoyed his film Vikrant Rona. And yeah, let's welcome him right away. Anup Bhandari, how are you doing, my friend?
Hi Tom, I'm doing good. How are you?
I cannot complain. This is a pleasure actually to talk to you. And you probably heard about our little event series that we're doing here in Germany to promote Indian film. It's called Masala Crowd. I got the shirt on. We already got
Oh,
a little bit
nice.
of merch.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
we really enjoy Indian movies. And yours is actually one of the favorite ones that we have seen this year. And this is really exciting that I have the chance to talk to you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you guys love the film.
Yeah, I was wondering myself because I mean we're going to talk about the film obviously a little bit later here, but looking at this from this perspective, I've read the reviews and I was like, what are the people saying? This is not true.
Mm.
I don't know. Maybe
Mm.
for coming from a Westerner perspective, it is different.
Mm.
I don't know, but I
Yeah.
really
Mm.
do have to disagree with all the critics that are saying this is a snooze
Yeah.
fest. This is boring. But this was an exciting movie, and the love for adventure movies that I had from the 90s, you know, like The Mummy and recently Jungle Cruise. This gave me this feeling, and I had a really good time and felt very nostalgic watching these movies. And before we get into that, I always want to talk about, first of all, about your life, about filmmaking, and obviously about Vikrant Rona. Before we get into that, I
Yeah.
have some quick rapid answer questions prepared. And we will
Mm.
get into that here in a second. I got 5 for you. Are you ready for the first round?
Definitely. Yeah.
All right, let's do it then. Fast answer. Remember, don't think too long. First one
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
your favorite cinema.
There's one very close to my house called PVR Vega City. So that's the one that I visit very often. Yeah.
Okay, and what's your favorite seat in the cinema? Like, where do you like
Probably
to sit?
the
Yeah.
fourth row from the back.
All right, and what's
Like the center of the auditorium.
okay. What's your favorite snack that you take to the cinema?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. Which kind?
Yeah.
Which kind of ice
Anything
cream?
that has chocolate. Anything that has chocolate in it.
All right. 3D or 2D?
2D.
All right. Original or dubbed?
Original. Anytime.
All right. That's it for the first round. I think you did very
Yeah.
well. So India has a lot of different languages. Since we talked about original and dubbing, how is that in terms of like? Do the people prefer to watch original or more dubbed?
So, majority of the cinegoers prefer watching in their own language because they understand the minor details, which probably get lost in while they watch in an original language because they don't understand it. With subtitles, it's difficult to translate it in the best way possible. But having said that, any kind of translation, be it subtitle or be it dubbing in a different language, it always certain things are lost in translation. But because we have so many different languages and Indian languages, some of them are close to each other. Some of them are as different as let's say Kannada and German language. So it's pretty hard. And as far as a filmmaker is concerned, it becomes even harder because you have like for example, we dubbed in Indian languages and I'm not very proficient in most of them. I probably do well in Hindi and Kannada. I understand a little bit of Telugu, Malayalam and Tamil not so much. But monitoring all these dubbings because I have to make sure that they are as good as the original. So I have to first understand what they're saying and then ask my dubbing coordinators whether what they're saying is making sense with respect to the original context. So it's a time-taking process, and it's pretty hard, but that is the only way to reach out to a wider set of audience.
Totally understandable. I want to get more into that at a later point, but first of all, I want to talk about you as a person. How did you get into filmmaking? And my first question is there: when did this come up? Why did you want to make movies? Where does it come from?
So, I mean, as far back as I can remember, I've always been fascinated with films. Like me and my brother, so we used to watch a lot of films. So my parents used to take us to movies all the time. I mean, that was the one entertainment that we had in our family, and apart from playing cricket. So we used to watch a lot of films. We used to enact a lot of scenes after coming back home. So my brother would be the actor, and I would be the director, telling him what to do. So somewhere subconsciously, I've always wanted to make films, and I think back in 2000, I had written the script, and I wanted my dad, who has had directed a lot of TV serials, the TV soaps, as you would call it. So he had directed a few, and I wanted him to direct this script of mine. And he wasn't very looking back, I know that script wasn't all that great, but back then it was something that was amazing for me. And my dad said, there are a lot of things that you need to change in this. And I said, I'm 100% sure that this is something that is going to work. And that is when my dad said, why don't you do it if you're so confident? And I took it very seriously. So that is when, this whole thing about wanting to become a director popped up in my head. And I started doing short films, and one short film after the other, I started improving in the way I shot them. And eventually that led to me making a debut as a filmmaker in Kannada.
Since you never studied film, it's really interesting that, I mean, you got a lot probably from your father. And I was wondering, how did your bachelor degree in information science help you with your film career? Is there anything that went hand in hand?
See, one of the things that helped me is while I was working in a software company, I got into short film contests. So I was forced by a friend of mine to get into this contest, and I ended up winning the first place. And that kind of encouraged me to do more. And every year I used to take part in that short film contest. And apart from that, I think one way in which it really helped me is in the way I manage my films, like, the project management aspect of it, because I worked as a project manager. It really helped me in organizing my thoughts, organizing my project plan. So I have written a lot of code to kind of, plan my whole schedule. So right now I have an Excel document which captures everything that my shooting schedule needs. And all my associate directors have to do is enter the scene number and click a button, and they'll get a detail of everything, starting from, who are the actors in the scene, what costume they're wearing, what are the props required for the scene, what are the special equipments that we need, how many junior artists we need, or extras, as you call it. So all these things are documented in that, and it is just a button click away for them to actually get the detail of what is required for a particular day shoot. So this is something that I learned because of my IT background.
Okay, that's a really good thing. But like when you studied it, it's not like that that you thought of it. Oh, I can use that for filmmaking. That's not didn't happen, right?
Things are changing today in India, but in my generation and the generations before that, it is very essential for you to either become an engineer or a doctor before you become anything else, because that is part of your upbringing. So I actually wanted to become a musician. I wanted to become a composer, and I couldn't get into that because the first priority is either you become a doctor or an engineer. So information science was something that was probably closer to what I wanted to do. So that's something I picked up. Yeah.
So yeah, that leads me to my next question. So thank you for that.
No
you're a multi-talented in that way. My friend, she's a writer, and she just focuses on that, maybe do some directing here and there. And but you basically write, direct, you're a lyricist, you compose. This is one of the questions that comes into filmmaking. How how does it all come together in terms of how do you manage that? Because when I look at Western filmmaking, directors I wouldn't say are not that talented in that way, or they not like use the talents they have. They only focus on one thing. But how is it with you and lyricist, like being a lyricist and composer?
So, as you must be aware, songs are an integral part of most
Obviously,
Indian
yeah.
films. And while I write my script, I try to create the songs in such a way that they go with the flow of the film. And because I know my script in and out, it is easier for me to write something that is relevant to that particular sequence. And I bring in, I mean, if you understand the lyrics, I bring in a lot of story into the lyrics. And it's not like it was a conscious decision to do all these things. It is more like in my first film, I did not have the kind of budget to bring in a lot of people. So the best thing for me to do was do things by myself. So I did a lot of things there. Like I acted in a as a small character in the film. I sang a couple of songs in the film, and I wrote all the songs. I composed all the songs. I even designed the poster of the film. So apart from that, I like involving myself in every department. So I'm very closely involved in the departments where I may not even be the primary person. Be it the editing, the VFX, the color grading, the music, the background score. I like spending a lot of time with my team members. So I think the general amount of time a person might spend on editing, I spend that for my film. General time that somebody would spend to do the background score, I spend that for my film. So because I can make the film only once, so I want to make sure that it is closest to what I've envisioned.
Speaking of the poster right now, because like I don't know, you can see a couple posters behind me. It's called these kind of posters called alternative movie posters. I don't know if you're aware of them.
Right.
Like, have you ever heard of Mondo? Like Mondo, the poster company. They're with Funko right now. It's like a big community of like around 30,000 people. And there are artists who do actual movie posters, like key art posters, but also these alternative movie posters who are screen printed. And since you said you designed a poster, I was wondering which one it was, because I have seen two of them. This is one of them, obviously. This one. Did you design this one?
Yeah, this is the one. This is the one. The main poster was the one where it was only the face. And this was an alternate poster that I designed because I wanted all the main characters on the poster. So this is one of them. But the most famous one is the one with just the face.
Yeah, with just your brother's face, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I also saw this. Yeah. I also saw this one, which I really liked. I don't know if you have seen this one before, but
I've seen this. Yes, this was actually designed by a team called Kani Studio. And this was one of the fan-made posters. And I liked it so much that I called them over and asked them to design a T-shirt based on this. And they ended up designing posters for the other two films of mine.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, posters are a big part of my life. I mean, I have a big collection, and trying to push the alternative poster artists, like, to get bigger gigs and stuff like that. And so it's really interesting to see. And I'm venturing into Indian movies as well, because I want, for my favorite Indian movies, I want posters. And this needs to happen. So if we can make something happen, that would be amazing after that, obviously. But let's get back to one more question about your life. How is it in terms of you watching German films? Have you ever seen one? Do you know any German films?
I have seen Lives of Others. I've seen. I mean, I'm not able to recollect the names right now, but I've seen a few of them. Was Run Lola Run a German film?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. So I've seen quite a few. It's just that because I don't know the language, I don't know if it is German or some other European language. Yeah. I've seen. There was one more movie about Hitler's life. I forgot the name. The Last Days of Hitler.
The Downfall.
The Downfall. Yeah, the Downfall. I've seen that. I've seen quite a few actually. I'm not able to remember the names right now, but I've seen quite a few.
And what's the verdict from your perspective?
I've loved all of the films, especially because I've only seen the ones that have very high rating, that the films that are critically acclaimed. So obviously, I've loved all of them.
Okay, that's really great to hear. Then let's talk about filmmaking here in a bit. But I have 5 more rapid fire questions to loosen you up a little bit, and let's knock these out. Oh, but by the way, before, have you seen that? I mean, since there are a lot of big Indian movies this year, and especially I think RRR gets mentioned here, KGF 2 and Vikram and things like that. And I personally would include Vikrant Rona for me. SS Rajamouli, he congratulated Vikrant Rona and Sudeep on the success of the movie. Have you noticed that at all? Is that how big or how connected are you with these with other filmmakers in India?
I'm connected with a few of them, and I did see Mr. Rajmouli's tweet, and I even replied to that. So awesome. It was quite amazing that he took the time to watch the film and he appreciated it. So I'm very glad he did that. Quite a few filmmakers and quite a few actors from Kannada industry, from other film industries, they all congratulated me. So it's kind of encouraging that there are so many people who are taking time to watch the film and appreciate it.
That's amazing. Yeah, glad that there is this kind of community, because that's what I have to say. I like, as a Westerner coming into these movies, like the first time my buddy Tino and I, we went to the screenings, we were basically the only two white guys or German guys, and so many Indian people in there, and then it's like always funny, like they come always up to you and ask you like, what are you doing here? Do you understand the language? Do you understand the movie? And they're like, I have to read the subtitles. I'm sorry, but I love this, and I love how everybody is interacting, and this is just a great feel. And so Indian cinema is something special, and that's why we try to transport this, and glad that we have an actual insight into that with you.
Yeah.
All right, then 5 more. Here we go. Favorite director?
Yeah. Christopher Nolan.
Favorite film poster?
Poster.
I'll tell you. Mine is Jaws.
Jaws. Okay. Okay. This is a little hard. Can we come back to this?
We'll come back to this at the end. Your favorite composer?
A.R. Rahman, Hamsaleka. There are 2.
Okay, fair enough. Your favorite horror movie?
The Shining.
All right. And the last one before we come back is your favorite movie quote. Do you have like a quote you're like it's always there? Like Arnie saying, "I'll be back."
Yeah, I know. Probably, the one I can think of right now is I'll make him an offer that he cannot refuse.
Okay, but do you have like an Indian one? You can also mention Indian one. Doesn't have to be a Western one.
Indian. I'm not able to think of one right now. There are quite a few. It's just that
Fair enough.
Ask me out of the blue. It's a little difficult to.
I know.
That's something.
That's why that's always like what comes to mind. It's like it's hard. Like for example, if people ask, "What's your favorite movie?" Come on, there's so many good ones. You cannot name one.
Yeah,
and it's always hard. Yeah. But did a poster pop in your head?
Maybe The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight. All right, fair enough.
Yeah,
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Then let's talk a little bit about filmmaking here. First of all, I wanted to know, because I know there's always like I would say competition maybe between the different industry parts in India, especially North and South. They're always kind of like having it out for each other, and especially the fans make it sometimes even a toxic atmosphere. But how is it for you as an actual filmmaker in this industry? How do you perceive that?
See, I think, we tend to look at the negatives more than the positives. So, the actual number of people that are, talking about the divide, or, that, our films are better than yours, my hero is better than yours. It's a few hundreds or a few thousands, but there are millions of people who actually enjoy a film for what it is, and who really don't, bother about all this divide. So, being in the industry for almost 8-9 years now, I've come to realize that I should actually look at the positives and not worry about the negatives. I mean, even when it comes to reviews or general public talking about, or YouTubers talking about it, I've noticed that off late there is a tendency to bring a film down, irrespective of how good it is or bad it is. The initial tendency is to bring the film down, and I'm not talking about everybody. There is a certain segment. A certain set of people who try to do this. But as filmmakers, I guess, probably 20, 30 years back, filmmakers had to just worry about making films, probably put up their posters on the streets, and people would come and watch the film. With television, the responsibility for filmmakers increased slightly because we had to talk about our films. And now, with the digital platform, we have to not just promote our film, we have to defend our film, we have to fight for it, we have to fight the negativity, we have to fight piracy. So the additional responsibilities have increased.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, especially with social media and like where everybody can like hide behind like a Twitter handle or Instagram handle, and it makes it hard. I totally understand that. And
Yeah.
would you say that there's an in the industry itself? Is there a divide, or is it more of just from coming from the outside, like external pressure, basically?
No, I won't say just the film industry. I think it's in every walk of life.
Okay.
Even if you come to politics, there's right wing, there's left wing. No matter what field you're in, that divide is always there. But we have to just ignore and overcome it, and try not to get into a controversy because of it, because that also affects your film, because one wrong statement from you, and you end up uh, getting into the bad books of people. So you have to be
Exactly.
very careful.
Alrighty. Since you have made your first steps into movie making in the Western world, how is it different
Yeah.
making movies in the Western world compared to India? Is there a difference at all, or does it just seem like one?
In fact, one of my short films I shot in the US, it's called Words. So it featured Russell Howard, who played Daniel Day-Lewis's son in There Will Be Blood. So I am, kind of, I won't say I'm an expert in it, but I do understand the Western sensibilities a bit more than an average Indian person, because I was in the US for almost a decade, and I have watched a lot of world cinema. In fact, I still remember, I think I went to the US in 2008, and for many years, I have watched 3 to 4 films a day. So, which is why, I watched a lot of German films. I watched a lot of Korean films. I watched a lot of English films. So, every language, any film that is rated highly, I've watched it. So that kind of helped me. And I think even if you look at my first film, Rangitaranga, it was a sensibly made. So we tend to call films art films and commercial films here.
Yeah,
So
we
commercial
do
films
too.
are
We
the
do
ones
too.
which reach out to a wider set of audience, and art films are the ones that
Yeah,
probably are
the
appreciated by the critics, but nobody watches them.
the blockbusters
So
basically, and independent
yeah,
cinema. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I have tried to blend both in the sense, I try to make a commercial cinema that is sensible for most part of it. So there are certain elements that you need to have in a film in order for it to work commercially. So those are obviously included, but I try to include them in a very sensible way.
Yeah, I think it worked really well. So I was wondering because like when you look at different movies from India, it's there's also first of all the way things work in terms of like you always have an intermission. The structure
Yeah.
of a script, there's not like it's like a 3 part or a 5 part script. It's totally different. And
Yeah.
how do you do your scripts, for example? Like is there a certain way that they teach in India, or how can I understand this?
Well, I don't know how they teach in India because I've never been to a film
Yeah,
school.
I know, but I mean from
There are
basically
some, yeah,
from the other directors,
but
what you
but
heard.
yeah, since you mentioned the 3 act structure, I do follow that. So I do follow the 3 act structure, and I try to create every 10 minutes. I try to create something interesting in the screenplay, and of course, I try to break away from it as well as it's something deliberate that I try to do sometimes. It may work, it may not work, I don't know. Like in my second film, I tried to do that. I tried to break away from it in a major way, and it kind of backfired. But yeah, I do follow that structure, and I try to bend it slightly uh, to kind of give it a different edge.
Yeah, this we're talking about Raja Radha, yeah, the second.
Rajaratha, yeah,
Exactly,
yeah,
that's the second one, and yeah, that's that. I actually I wanted to see this movie, but there are no English
yeah,
subtitles everywhere, anywhere. I cannot find
yeah,
any. So I tried, but it's like, well, I don't get all of it. But it looks. I have to say, it looks really interesting, and the log line as it the thing, people, there is a talking bus. It's a live action
yeah.
movie. There's a talking bus. I like that fact already. So so I really have to get some English subtitles for this one.
I hope you find one.
I hope so too. If you have any, please
Yeah,
give me.
I will for sure. I have to look for it actually.
Okay, that's good. That's
Yeah,
good. But yeah,
yeah,
speaking of your films, you have your brother in a lot of your
yeah,
films, but also your
yeah,
wife is doing the costumes, right?
yeah.
I was wondering, do you see then filmmaking, also with your dad now, do you see your filmmaking as a family business in some sort of way, or how is that for you?
No, not really. So when we started off, like I said, right from very young age, my brother and I have been, discussing movies and wanting to make movies. And he's from theater background. So my first film, I was supposed to, I actually wanted to work with Mr. Sudeep because that
Hmm.
is a script I'd written. But obviously, he was a big superstar, and I, approaching somebody that big without having any background,
Hmm.
that doesn't really work. So that is when, I thought, okay, I have somebody at home who's also, good looking. He's tall. He's got a good voice. He's an actor. So, let's start from there. And in fact, my first film, the producer approached my dad asking for my brother's date. So that is when that is how we got in touch with the producer. And then, my dad, he wanted my dad to direct it. And my dad said, I don't think I'll be comfortable directing my son, but I know one person who's good. You just look at his work and you just talk to him, and if it works out for you, you can probably work with him. And I was in the US, so he saw my short film, Words, and we had a Skype call, just like what we're having right now. And he just heard the first scene and the songs that I'd composed, and he was so impressed that he decided to do the film. So that is how the journey started for me and
Hmm.
my brother. And my wife was always interested in costume designing, and like I said, a lot of things that we did was because we didn't have the budget. So
Yeah,
when
out
you
of
have somebody at
necessity.
home
Yeah.
doing it for free, out of necessity, so I got a costume designer for free, so I made use of it. And she was brilliant. She was really appreciated. And in fact, I think, after Vikrant Rona, she's been getting a lot of calls.
Oh, I
A lot
bet.
of
I
people want her
bet.
to design costumes. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, we're gonna come to this in a second here, but I wanted to know,
yeah.
how is it at home? Can you say something like honey, this is not what I want. Is she gonna get back at you, or how's that?
Oh yeah, out of all the technicians, she's the only one who can talk back to me.
Oh,
So,
okay, okay. And
but when I'm working with my technicians, I'm the kind of person who takes inputs from everybody. But ultimately, I just, once I decide this is the right thing to do, I just stick to it.
all
She's the
right.
only person who's like, no, this is what you're saying is wrong. This is gonna look good. I'm like, no, but that is not what I want. So there's this healthy argument that happens, but yeah, it's fun.
Okay, that's great. And your brother, is he also allowed to talk back, or is because he's a younger brother, so he cannot?
Yeah. No, I don't think he's ever done that,
Uh-huh.
probably out of respect for his elder brother. But we do have a lot of discussions. We have arguments,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to story discussions. So
Yeah.
I write and then I discuss with him. He's the first person I discuss with. And then he gives me, inputs. And most of the times I agree with that. There are certain times when, I'm like, no, 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 I don't think what you're saying is right. And
Hmm.
then there's an argument that happens, and very rarely we get irritated with each other, and that doesn't last long though. After a few minutes you're fine, back to okay, fine, let me try to think about this, and you've said this, now give me some time, let me think about it. If it works, I'll do it, otherwise we'll just ignore that. So that's how it works.
Alrighty. I was wondering, since the movies that I have seen so far, the bigger ones like Vikrant Rona and your first one, Rangi Taranga, they reflect more of a like small town life, like a village life also, and also a lot of religious mythological aspects of the Indian culture. Is that something that came with from your private life, from your upbringing, or does the interest come from for this?
Yeah, so both Rangitrang and Vikrant Rona, they're set in the same universe. So there's this village called Kamaruttu where the story happens. The stories are unrelated, but the universe is the same. Just that the scale of the universe was much bigger in Vikrant Rona. So this is something, the culture is very close to, the region from where I was born. So that area, that entire region is called South Canara. I was born there but brought up in a different city. But I used to visit my village very often. Every summer holiday. Every time we had any opportunity to visit, we used to go there. So a lot of what you see in the film is based on my experiences, the kind of people that I've met in my childhood. So all that, and I'm a big lover of mystery movies. So I love watching mystery films, and so it was an obvious choice to write a mystery film based on the things that I've seen as a kid.
It feels kind of like like now after you said mystery film. I mean, I knew that it's a mystery film, but now I feel like, well, this reminds me of Knives Out. like you're the Rian Johnson of Indian cinema. Is that what we can take from?
I don't know about the comparison, but yeah, I love making suspense thrillers, and I love watching them even more than that. Of course, I would love to make other kind of films. I am making other films as well, but my default option to watch if I decide to watch a film, my default option is to look for a mystery thriller.
Awesome. I mean,
if I don't find one, then I look for other genres.
Keep making it. I'm loving them. And my last question on the filmmaking side here, or no, I got one more, but before that, do you have any Easter eggs that always come up in your films? Is there something like, I don't know, who did it? Did it John Hughes always say it, like, or some director always used the same, like See Me Wednesday or See You on Wednesday as a movie title? It always comes up in his films, like American Werewolf in London, and then also some other 80s movies. But is there something for you that's similar?
Not exactly, but I do have a lot of hidden details in my films. The more you watch it, like, especially Vikrant Rona and Rangitaranga, there are people who watch it like 20 times, 30 times. So they come out of the film, with explanations for a lot of things, which probably a person who's watched it once or twice hasn't really understood. So there are quite a few details. And one more thing that I do in all my films is I appear in my film at least for a few seconds, and not as Anup Bhandari, the director, as some random character in the film that goes with the flow. I don't know if you remember seeing me in Vikrant Rona, but I was a photographer who clicked the school picture.
I remember, but I have to see it again.
Yeah, I have the one with the long beard and long hair.
Yeah, I think
the old guy who clicks a picture. Yeah,
I think I remember that, but I read it, so I was like, was it that? Was it that? But I think I remember. Yeah, but I have to watch it. I will watch it definitely again, and then I will take a very close look.
Sure.
Alrighty. Let's do some more 5 more rapid answer questions here. Name 3 movies that Westerners should watch in terms of Indian movies.
Indian movies. There is a very beautiful Kannada film called Accident from late Mr. Shankar Nag. So it was way ahead of its time in terms of the concept that they picked up, which eventually actually happened in real life. So I think that is one film. And then there's a film called Rang De Basanti, one of my favorites. So that is Amir Khan's film. That was directed by Rakesh Om Prakash Mehra. That is one of my favorite films. And apart from that, I like Swades featuring Shah Rukh Khan, which was also, there's a film called Chigurida Kanasu in Kannada with the same team.
Okay.
Both of them very beautiful films. So it's about a non-resident Indian who lives in the US who comes back to India, and initially he's not used to the way of life here, and then eventually starts loving everything, and kind of decides to stay there and help the people.
Yeah.
So that's a very beautiful film. Yeah.
Alrighty. Then the next question would be, which Indian movie should be nominated for next year's Oscars, except yours?
Very hard for me to say. In fact, I've not watched all the films.
Okay, but like from the ones you've
So
seen.
uh, I don't know. Well, because see, when it comes to Oscars, the criteria is totally different. Because most of the films that I watched this year, they are all commercial potboilers. So those are not the kind of films that are going to get Oscar for sure.
I know, but you're
So
the jury now. You can decide. Which one did you
can we
enjoy
come back
most?
to this?
We come back to this. All right, all right, all right.
Most, yeah.
Maybe that's maybe more like let's put it. Which did you enjoy most? Maybe is that better
Well,
question then?
I enjoyed most of them actually. I enjoyed KGF 2. I enjoyed RRR. I enjoyed Pushpa. So all of them,
Okay.
were good in their own way. So
All right, all right. Okay,
yeah,
we'll leave it at that. So they have a chance.
yeah,
Let's put them all in the pot and let some other
yeah,
people decide.
yeah.
All right. What would you say is your proudest moment in your filmmaking career?
Proudest moment. I don't know. It's again hard.
I
Uh,
know. I'm not going to easy ones for you.
yeah, and you wanted me to answer very quickly, so
I know. I
uh,
thought there's a moment that maybe I thought you're gonna say, for example, I thought you're gonna say the Oscar short nomination, like getting on the short list.
that one actually, getting shortlisted for Oscars was definitely one of the proudest moments, and uh, I think the proudest, or the day when I felt that I actually made a film that has impacted so many people is when I went to the US for the US premiere, expecting like 10, 15 people to just walk in there and say congratulations, and I saw a sea of people, like there was a huge line waiting to buy tickets, and as soon as we walked in there we were mobbed. We were not prepared for that. So that is when I realized that this is a huge success, and people are actually recognizing not just the actor but the director of the film, who's hardly ever seen in
Yes.
front of the camera. So that was a very proud moment.
Yeah. There you go. I think that's even a better one. So
Yeah.
congratulations again. Next
Thank
one
you.
is it Beam or Ram from RR? Which
Beam.
team? Beam. Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
Then
Beam the character. Of course, both of them were
yeah,
brilliant, but as
yeah.
a
I mean, yeah.
character, I think Beam. Yeah, yeah.
All right, perfect. And last but not least, Sanju or Rona?
Rona, of course. I mean, this film is about
Ah,
him, so it is Rona.
okay, I thought you were gonna say Sanju because he's your brother.
I mean, Vikrant Rona comes first, and then Sanju, a close second.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect. Alrighty, then let's talk about Vikrant Rona itself. I want to get into the
yeah,
movie, maybe a little bit of the content. We're not going to spoil people, so don't
yeah.
be worried. We're going to try to keep it very PG. Um, First of all, I mean, the Phantom comics, Indiana Jones, as I said, Jungle Cruise, I had kind of these different vibes. Are these or were these the inspiration for this movie? Where did you draw your inspiration from?
Well, the inspiration was, like I said, my childhood. And while I was working on the character of Vikrant Rona, so the Phantom comic bit of it also is something that came out of my childhood, because I used to read a lot of comics, and be it Phantom, Tintin, Asterix, and there were Kannada comics as well that I used to read a lot. So there was an attic in my house, in my ancestral house, where they used to keep all these Phantom comics and all other comics, and I used to go up there, and we didn't have electricity, so we used to have these kerosene lamps, and I used to sit there and read all these comic books. So that is where that aspect of the kid. In fact, there were some scenes which have been
Yeah.
cut from the film, But uh, she actually reads a lot of that
Yeah, she
book, and
mentions
a
it
lot
there,
of
right?
her. Yeah, she does. We do mention it in the film a couple of times, but there were two more scenes with where we show her reading the book and kind of giving him a hint based on the book.
Hmm.
Like Phantom Son always becomes the next Phantom, so and that is why people don't realize that Phantom is dead. So that part she reads from the book, and that is when he realizes that what she's saying is right. This cannot be a. I mean, he knows it's not supernatural, but I think people think it's a ghost because probably it is a son of whoever has died, who's
Hmm.
become the the who's pretending to be this devil.
Hmm.
So I kind of connected it to Phantom Comics.
All right, and like the others, I don't know. I had like an Indiana Jones vibe, also as I said, like a Jungle Cruise vibe,
Hmm.
like from like the mystery side of things. Did you see that for yourself, or what?
Jungle Cruise, I think. No, Jungle Cruise, I think, released after we started shooting
Oh,
because we
okay.
started shooting, I think, back in
Hmm.
2019 is when we started shoot.
Yeah,
So 2018 is when I started writing. So I think Jungle Cruise released much later.
yeah. Okay.
But Indiana Jones, I think the one similarity is, I guess, the whip which he holds, which is kind of similar, which actually came in much later, and it had nothing to do with Indiana Jones. It was just that we were discussing a scene, and the scene where he uses a whip against the other character.
Hmm.
So initially the whip was not there, and while discussing, we felt just a bare hand fight may not work out there, and that is when Mr. Sudeep suggested that what if I use a whip there, and
Hmm.
that is how the whole whip idea came
Ah.
into existence. Yeah.
I see. That's really interesting. I mean, I really enjoyed this little tidbit, and it felt a little bit. I mean, also, I think Mr. Sudeep's character feels like also like a
Mm.
Harrison Ford kind of type character. I mean, he's not an
Yeah.
archaeologist, but he's like he has this swagger about him, and or the character has a
Yeah.
swagger about him, and he gives them like the
Mm.
coolness. It's. I think he did a really
Yeah.
good job portraying Vikrant Rona.
Yeah. That he did. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
He's actually one of the finest actors we have in our country, and so I like I said, I've always wanted to work with him for a very long time. I've wanted to work with him,
Mhm.
and when we did this film together, I remember telling him that because he, in fact, in the initial days of his career, he got three back-to-back Filmfare awards. So that is one of the most respected awards here. And for a long time, he's not been going to award functions, and he's not a big believer in all those things. But after I narrated the story to him, I said, I don't know whether you believe in it or not, but I think you're going to win a lot of awards for this performance.
Yeah, I hope so
So
too.
I hope it turns out to be true because he's really given a great performance, especially the pre-climax and the climax is brilliant.
Yes, indeed. And speaking of the climax, we have like a one shot scene in there. How hard was it to
Yep,
make that?
extremely hard because uh, we were very conscious. We very consciously decided that it should not just be a transition where something appears, a pillar appears in front of the camera, and then you swipe and go to the next shot. It had to look like the whole thing was one single shot. This was again initially it was not supposed to be a one shot thing, and we were having a discussion, and during this discussion. Mr. Sudeep again suggested, what if this whole thing is a single shot? So the initial reaction from me was that, it is an exciting idea, but we are conveying a lot more than just a fight. Because most of the single shot fights, you just show a fight. But here, there is emotion, there are multiple characters, you have to show multiple reactions. So that was a big challenge for me. And I did not want the whole fight to happen in one space because then it becomes monotonous. So that whole idea of having them start the fight on the ground floor, and then he climbs on the pillar, goes on to the next floor, they fight there, and then they all fall down, and then it continues. So in fact, the original fight was about 7.5 minutes long, single take. But then we thought that the length might become an issue, and we cut about 2 minutes of it. So in the final film, you actually don't see the whole thing. But it was extremely challenging because even for the DOP, it was extremely challenging because he had to carry the camera, which was almost like 30 kgs, and throughout the whole scene. So he cannot afford to miss the first mark, and the last mark.
Yeah.
Both the actors and the DOP. If they miss it even by an inch, we have to redo the whole thing again. And some shots were like 2.5 minutes long, and it's extremely tiring. And all the actors were badly injured. And
Yeah.
after every shot, it would take them like 20, 30 minutes to recover from the take because it's very difficult. And doing that for like 8, 10 days in a row continuously, it is very demanding, very taxing, and for me, it was like every shot I have to sit in front of the monitor, and because it is handheld, it is not precise. At least if you have a motion control camera, you can say that this is your first mark, this is your last mark. Because it was handheld, he had to be very precise. So I look at it, and
Wow.
then he's like, William, left, 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 a little right. Okay, take. So immediately, as soon as he comes into that position, I'm like, action, and then they go for it.
Wow, that's that sounds very exhausting already just talking about it. But yeah, I mean those one shots
Yeah,
and some great stuff. I have to say, I have seen this Korean movie Carter. I think it's out on Netflix right now, and I think what they did, like,
yeah,
I'm not a big fan of like the new, like how they use the drone footage, but this is like a one shot movie kind
yeah,
of thing, and I think they did some good stuff with the
yeah,
drone
yeah.
footage, and I think that was really interesting, and I think this could be something to make it maybe easier in the future to direct a bigger one shot happenings.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely an interesting thing, but I think it has to be done only if the script demands it,
Yes.
because I think they did it in Birdman too. The whole movie was like one shot. 1917 was one more movie where, I mean, again, 1917 was, I guess, a bigger challenge than any of the films that we mentioned just now because
Yeah.
they were traveling from one geography to other, and when you look at it, it must have been such a big challenge, and they pulled it off so amazing feat.
Indeed, indeed. And speaking of hard work, I mean, you had to work through the pandemic with the movie. How did you how challenging was that, and how did you pull it off?
Well, I think we were the first big film to start after the pandemic. Uh, as far as I know, in India, definitely we were the first, one of the first, probably in the world, because we started immediately after the first wave. So we had a lockdown here, and as soon as they opened, they started shooting. It was a little challenging because a lot of people did not know how severe COVID is. Nobody had any idea, and we were worried. Like people were worried, just touching something, and immediately we had to sanitize because we don't know what is going to happen. So it went on for a few days, but once we got used to the fact, and the fact that we were all in a bubble, even before the bubble concept came into existence, we were in a bubble. We were staying in an apartment, and the all the technicians, they were housed in different places, and they had to come directly to the set. But the risk was always there because you never know. But luckily, I don't think we ever had a single COVID case in our film while we were shooting for
Awesome.
the film. It did happen once we were done with our shoot. People some randomly caught COVID. They became positive and all that. But overall, during the course of making the film, nobody caught the infection. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And how many roles did you take on this movie? I mean, we talked about how multi-talented you are. How many parts did you take in this movie?
Well, I wrote the story, screenplay, and dialogues. I directed the film. I wrote the lyrics. I composed one of the songs. And apart from that, yeah, I was involved in pretty much every activity that we had for the film. I did shoot. So usually, when there is no dance in the song, I do the choreography of the song myself. So, be it the lullaby song or the Fakira song, Nirup's introduction song. So, all those things I shot by myself. Yeah, I think that covers most of it.
All right. I mean, that's quite a
I,
lot
I,
for
I,
one
did,
person.
I did sing the introduction song of Vikrant Rona, Gumma Banda Gumma. So I was a singer for that. I did singing for a couple of other songs as well as like in Fakira song, the initial voice that comes like Yeah, oh. So all those kind of things, and sometimes I even use my sound as instrument for
Ah, okay.
certain background scores. Like in my first film, I did a because I wanted Ajnish to play it on flute, and he didn't have a flute handy at the time. I said, I think it should sound something like this, and I just recorded it, and it ended up being in the final film. Like,
That's amazing.
So I played it, and
Yeah.
he just ended up having it in the film.
So many facets to you. I cannot believe it. So incredible. so
Thank you so much.
I was wondering, like, do you have a favorite scene from the movie? Is there something you really, so this is the best I have done. I really, this is how I dreamed it up, and this is how I turned it out.
Favorite scene? I think the first time Vikrant Rona walks into the police station. That's
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite scenes because I did a previews of the whole thing before we went to shoot, and we shot it
Yes.
exactly the way I had envisioned, including the
Mm.
sets to the way the camera moves and everything. So that is one of my favorite scenes from the film. Of course, the climax was one more scene where we it exceeded our expectation,
Mm.
especially the scene shot where all three of them fall down. So I still remember Ajnish was watching it while we were doing the background score, and when he saw that, he literally jumped up from his chair because he was like, "Oh my God, how did you do that?" So I think that shot was something that all of us are very proud of.
Awesome. That's really amazing. Um, I was wondering, I mean, looking at this movie, I mean, it has a really cool color grading. I love the feel to it. You have like you're in that jungle basically, and
Yeah.
those great set pieces. How was it created? How do we like? Is it on location? I don't think so, right? It was a studio.
No, no. 90% of the forest that you see in the film is a studio. So we were shooting in Hyderabad, and we built a few floors of forest.
Hmm.
So a lot of research went into it because most people who tried to create a forest set had failed before us. Because so we tried to figure out, the reason behind the failure. The first reason was that all of them would keep the floors very even. So that was one thing that we decided not to do. We made it very
Hmm.
uneven, like how it is in a real forest. And the second is the texture of the forest. So my art director Shiv Kumar, he did a lot of research, and he figured out a way to make sure that the trees, the leaves, and everything, they look very authentic, because recreating nature is the toughest part of it. Yeah, building a set for a temple probably is relatively easier for him. Not that it is easy, but recreating nature is something that is very, very difficult, and he did an amazing job.
All right. Speaking of him, I mean, he did art direction for KGF 2. He's gonna be on Salar, and also, I mean, he did Vikrant Rona. I mean, how
Yeah.
incredible talent, I would say. Like from the movies he worked on before. Is that something
Yeah.
you will continue in the future?
Definitely, because he's almost like family right now. Most of the technicians, for that matter,
Awesome.
they're like family to me because we worked so closely together. In fact, William has been with me since my first film,
Oh, cool.
my DOP,
Hmm.
and Ajnish, who does the music for me, he's been with me since my first film. So I tend to stick to people that I've worked with, and once I've loved their work, unless they want to stop working with me, I will continue working with them.
Awesome. That's really great. I was also wondering because like this is one of the few movies I have to say I'm not a big fan of 3D, and you said also 2D, but this movie came in 3D, and you actually made use of 3D, which is a good thing because like when I see like I don't know like a big Marvel blockbuster or whatever. That goes in a similar vein.
Yeah.
They use 3D, but like after 2 seconds, I forgot about that. I even have the 3D glasses on. It looks just like 2D, and I was wondering, like
Yeah.
did you actually use that as a storytelling device, or how was it to include that?
So when the prospect of 3D was put in front of me, said that if at all we do 3D, I think this is a film that's tailor made for it, because we decided much later into production that we'll do 3D for this film. So the way I had shot the film, it was because there's a lot of parallax movement, and there's the camera is trying to tell a story. It is not that we're not using camera as a prop. We are using it as a storytelling device, and it is moving through objects. It is moving through the jungles. So having this in 3D will definitely add depth. And like I said, I was never a big fan of 3D, but when they showed me the demo, I felt that this film is definitely looking better in 3D. Of course, the 2D had its own charm, but in 3D, for example, if you look at the forest, now when you look at it in 2D, probably you see so much of depth, but in 3D, it
Yeah.
is like 3 times, 4 times more than that. So even without the VFX, the forest was looking like a real forest already. I mean, there was so much depth to it.
Yes, and was it a harder sell to get like a 3D release, or is that didn't make a difference?
No, it didn't really make a difference. It's just that the number of 3D theaters were lesser than the number of 2D theaters. But I think people love the 3D experience, and most people who watched in 2D would again go and watch 3D. And people who watched it in 3D would go back and watch in 2D just to see the difference. So it kind of worked out very well for the film.
Yeah.
And I think it was, in the end, it was a pretty good decision to actually go in 3D.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I talked to multiple people who actually are kind of the same opinion. It's like 3D doesn't do anything to all the movies, but in this one, it actually did. So it kind of was part of the experience of the adventure, and I think it turned out really well to do this in 3D.
Yeah, in fact, one of the films where I thought 3D was used well was Hugo. Where, it was not used as a gimmick, but it was used as a storytelling device. So I guess somewhere we tried to achieve that, and I hope we were able to reach at least a percent of it, small percent of it.
I think so too. But I mean, looking at you, what's it? That's like 11 years ago. So that's how long there has not been a good 3D movie. And I think you kind of like gave this experience to us. So thank you for that as well. Talking about some more set pieces here, because you scouted like over 100 houses, I've read for Rangitaranga. And did you put the same effort in for Vikrant Rona? Is there, or was it built from scratch, the house, or how was it?
No, it's the same house that's used in Rangitaranga because, like I said, it happens in the same universe. So we use the same house. And because we shot most of the film on sets, location scouting was much lesser compared to Rangitaranga, because Rangitaranga was pretty much shot on location. So the house that I used in Rangitaranga was reused here, so not much effort went in there. Just that we kind of dressed it up in a better way. So yeah, I think I visited Kerala for a few days to figure out some of the other locations. We went to Maharashtra to pick a few locations. Apart from that, everything happened inside the studio floor.
Awesome. Alrighty, then I would. I'm not going to spoil anything, so we're gonna stay away from the content a little bit. But people, please watch this movie. It's definitely worth it. But the big question is, where's the next part? Is there going to be a next part?
There is definitely a possibility, and this possibility has been discussed. Not now, not after release, not after the success. While we were making Vikrant Rona, there was this idea that I had in my mind, which I had discussed, and everybody liked the idea. And so there's definitely a possibility. It's a question of when.
All right. Then let's look into the future. But first, before we look there, not as far. Your movie, I mean, you want to do something, especially for the Western audience. There are different dub versions for this movie. You said, do you want to talk about it, or?
Yeah, we do have the English version and the Spanish version, which is ready. And I guess we had some limited screenings as well. But we are exploring other avenues also, because, there's the first time, at least for a Kannada film, there's the first time that, we've dubbed in a foreign language. In Indian cinema, even if there are, I think there are hardly any. Maybe some Hindi movies may have been dubbed in these languages. I don't know.
I mean,
but we are trying to.
all the movies from 2000s, like the Shah Rukh Khan ones, because he's big also here in Germany, but especially by the Arabic community and people like that. They have been dubbed in German.
Right.
I can tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are trying to explore that market. We are trying to, reach out to a wider set of audience, because, especially a movie like Vikrant Rona, which has a lot of focus on culture apart from entertainment. There is this cultural aspect to it, which is unknown to a lot of people. Even within India, a lot of people are not very familiar with that culture. So that is something I feel will be exciting to the Western audience as well. Something new to explore. So we are trying our best to, reach out to a wider set of audience. So let's see how things go.
That sounds amazing, and I would love to have more people to like actually go into that movie. And I want to break this stereotype of like, people think it's basically like movies from India are just basically dancing, and there's a lot of like the stigma of being like, if a movie's from India it's automatically Bollywood, but it's not, people. It's not. And so this is the chance, people. If this happens, if there's an English version of Vikrant Rona, you can watch it, but also you can watch it with subtitles. It's definitely the same enjoyment, the same experience. And Anup, thank you so much for joining us here and talking about your great project and about your life. I really appreciate the insight, and I hope more people will open up and take a look at this great movie, Vikrant Rona, as and also at the other movies you have done in your life.
Thank you so much, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Alrighty, guys, we'll see us next time, maybe with some more from the Vikrant Rona verse, and maybe with some other stuff also. So stay tuned.